I want to talk about the Understanding Our Food System project, a project that started in 2017. It was a partnership with the Thunder Bay District Health Unit, Lakehead University, the Sustainable Food Lab, and just Food Circle at the time. And we were allowed to apply for specialized funding through the Ministry of Health to support 14 First Nations, which are road accessible in the District of Thunder Bay. And with that work, we were able to begin to look at Indigenous food sovereignty with these communities and ask them what they wanted to see related to food sovereignty in their communities. And an outside consulting firm put together a report that came up with some key themes. And some of the key themes include doing more in community workshops, working around gardening and land stewardship. And some of the communities were quite concerned with the spraying of glyphosate and other chemicals in their environment and how that was affecting the food that they were harvesting from the land, the waters, and things like berries came up, fish and moose were things that were brought up quite often.
So from these discussions with people living in community, we heard lots of stories, lots of experiences of the impacts of glyphosate on the soils, the runoff into the water, on the animals, which was having a very serious impact on people's ability to access food. And on their health and on the community's health. And this is again where the idea of food sovereignty comes in, because it's not just about, again, having access to that food, but the impacts on the broader food system, on broader health, and on life in the communities.
The spraying program started in the early 70s when they first introduced it. And the reason why they introduced it was because they used to tin the forest manually. And it was getting to be too expensive. And of course, accidents happen with people with saws and axes and everything else. So by using a helicopter spraying, they can do an entire forest area in a half a day, versus manually it'd take a couple months, 3-4 months.
So we've come up the 801 to one of the spots, kilometer 18, where they've used glyphosate and sprayed the area. They spray their cuts to keep down the smaller vegetation for all the new growth. And they also spray along the roads too, to make sure there's no vegetation growing up around the roads.
I remember having a meeting in Beardmore at the Legion about that. People were getting concerned, and they said no, there wasn't a problem with it because they were diluting the chemical was Vision. They were diluting it 50-50. When Ontario Hydro uses on the right of way, it's 100% because it kills everything. Whereas Vision, on the forestry end of it, they spray in the last week of August and the first week of September. And the reason for that is your leaves are starting to fall off and your sap is starting to go back into the ground. So what it does when the chemical hits the leaves, it sucks the chemical into the root system and kills the vegetation right off. That's why you can walk up into a cutover and push a birch down, because it's totally dead.
So the 801's about 20 kilometers outside of Beardmore, heading towards Jellicoe. When you head up the 801, you get to Auden and Mbabaka. That's where the members of AZA originate from, up there. So personally, we also have our camp up here and trap lines up here, and we hunt and gather and blueberry pick up here. So
when they first sprang, nobody really knew anything about it, but I had a trap line up there, and I went out to the trap line and noticed, first thing I noticed, there's no squirrels. There was no partridge. These kind of things weren't out there. And then next thing I noticed, the fox, they were losing the hair off their tails, and there was less partridge. They were laying the eggs, but the eggs weren't hatching. And I think it was all directly linked to the spraying program.
Yeah, growing up, I was always out here and picking berries with my grandparents. Yeah, definitely less moose in the area. Yeah, I think that's due to the pressure from the spraying.
The first thing we noticed is when we were dressing them, we'd see boils on the livers. And on a healthy liver, you can't poke your finger through it. But on a moose that's sick from contamination, you literally can poke your finger right through it. And if you were to take a knife and open it up, you'll see these big white boils all over the place. Not only in the liver, but into the kidneys.
When they've sprayed, say, near our trap lines, you definitely notice a decrease that year in the fur-bearing animals. They're just not there, so clearly they're moving to new habitat. I mean, I'm certain the animals know when things are contaminated, so. And then even the moose, the bear, like you notice a decrease in all the animals in those areas. The vegetation's gone, the blueberries are gone.
In the future, I'm looking into a moose study, like to test their meat and stuff, to see if the glyphosate is going to be in there, and like see if it's affecting the animals.
My dad and my papa were fishermen. I'm fourth generation fisherman, so I want to keep going and keep it in the family and do that as a livelihood. It's a lot harder than just setting a net and catching fish. You gotta know where those fish are gonna be.
Yeah, well, it all depends on water temperature and the wind, everything. The moon even affects your fishing, and that's all we do. We have our certain spots where we really get them, so that's where we go and look first for sure.
The forestry weren't allowed to spray within 30 meters of the streams. But what was happening is you get your spring runoff, okay? So your chemical is getting into the streams anyway. So therefore, we were noticing the fish would have growths on the side of them, you know, just like, I don't know, just little boils or something like that. We'd notice that.
Environmental changes too, we're seeing lots of fish that are ingrown and lots of warts, and they're not spawning right, so something's wrong with the water for sure when your fish aren't spawning and got cysts and gross bubbles in them and everything. Just not, it doesn't look too healthy.
We catch lots of lake trout with eggs in them during the winter, and they should have spawned them out in the fall, and they didn't spawn them out, so something definitely bothering them there for sure. Well, eventually, if they don't spawn, there won't be any more of them. The other thing we see lots of racers, we call them. They're real skinny, like they're sick fish, so something's affecting them, that's definitely.
Well, I think if they keep doing this, they'll just keep messing up the cycles of the fish and ruining our environment all around the lake and our landscapes and everything. It might just get worse.
Well, that'd definitely be devastating if we can't fish anymore. That's what we do, and we've been doing it for a long time, so hopefully they'll stop what they're doing and we can keep going.
We just gotta take care of our land and try to stop this stuff from happening, stop all the spraying, and keep our lakes and rivers healthy.
The Understanding Our Food Systems project is really focused on this idea of food sovereignty and self-determination. And specifically working with Indigenous communities and First Nations, this focuses not just on people having access to healthy food, to food that they need, that they want, that is produced, harvested in sustainable ways, but it's also about control and decision-making. And the idea that food is sacred for Indigenous people and that they should have the ability to make decisions and control their food systems in the way that they see fit.